Pablo Picasso. You know the name. It's pretty much synonymous with modern art, right? But here's the thing. Behind that revolutionary genius was a man whose personal life was, well, as destructive as his art was creative. So today, let's dive into this incredibly complicated legacy. And we have to start with his name. Get ready for this. That is his full name. It's a Spanish tradition, honoring a bunch of saints and relatives. But eventually, he made a pretty smart move. He dropped his dad's super common last name, Ruiz, and went with his mom's, Picasso. I mean, talk about a brilliant branding decision.
And this quote, wow. He said this to one of his many lovers, and it just cuts right to the heart of the whole story. It's a line that perfectly frames his relationships, this cycle of putting women on a pedestal and then, well, treating them like doormats. It defined his life, and it definitely defined his art.
Okay, so before he became this absolute titan of the art world, he was a child prodigy, and his life started with some unbelievable drama.
You're not going to believe this, but it all started in 1881 when the midwife actually thought he was stillborn. It was his uncle, a doctor, who saved him by blowing cigar smoke in his face. That made the baby Pablo cry. Wild, right? By the time he was just 9, he'd already painted his first oil painting, the Picador. But then tragedy hit. His little sister Conchita died, and that loss just haunted him forever. A couple of years later, at only 13, he gets into the Barcelona School of Fine Arts by finishing the entrance exam in a single day, a test that usually took students a whole month.
So now let's head to Paris, the absolute center of the art world back then. This is where personal tragedy, poverty, and of course new love would spark some of the most famous artistic shifts in history.
Picasso had moved to Paris with his dear friend Casagemas. But after a love affair went wrong, Casagemas took his own life. The shock, the grief of this event, it completely changed how Picasso saw the world and how he painted it.
And there you have it, in his own words. This is how a whole era of his art begins. That profound sadness he felt wasn't just an emotion anymore. It became a color, a mood, a whole lens for viewing humanity.
So what does that mean, to paint in blue? Well, his art basically became a direct reflection of what was going on inside him. The blue period is full of these heartbreaking images of beggars, prisoners, and the blind, all done in these cold, sad tones. It's a world of pure sadness, channeling all of his grief right onto the canvas.
But you know, just as tragedy pulled him into all that darkness, love was about to pull him right back out. When he met Fernand Olivier, the whole mood of his life and his art started to change in a big way. And you can just see the shift. It's like night and day. The cold blues are gone, replaced by these warm pinks and oranges. His subjects changed too, from outcasts to circus performers, like harlequins and acrobats. It was a whole new vibe, full of life and romance. His emotional world had changed, and you can see it right there in the colors.
But Picasso was never going to be the guy who just stood still. After that soft rose period, he was ready for a revolution. He started looking at the work of Cézanne and at these powerful African sculptures. And along with his friend Georges Braque, they were about to do something nobody had ever seen before. They invented Cubism. Think about it like this. Instead of painting something from one angle, they tried to show it from all angles at once, breaking it down into these geometric shapes. The first big masterpiece of this totally shocking new style was his 1907 painting, Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. It just completely turned 500 years of art history on its head.
So as Cubism is making him world famous, Europe is falling into absolute chaos. Picasso's next few decades are going to be marked by huge success, some really controversial politics, and a revolving door of relationships that just kept fueling his constantly changing art.
Now, what's so fascinating here is the pattern. You can literally track it. A new woman often meant a whole new artistic style. From the classic paintings inspired by his wife Olga, who was a ballerina, to the twisted, surreal portraits of Marie-Thérèse Walter. His personal life and his art were completely tangled up. Each woman was a muse, and you can see their influence right there in his work.
So while his personal life was a total whirlwind, politically he stayed out of the huge conflicts of his time. As a Spanish citizen in France, he didn't have to fight, but his choice not to take a side led a lot of people to criticize him for just standing by while so many suffered. But in 1937, something changed. The absolutely brutal bombing of a small Basque town during the Spanish Civil War, by Nazi forces no less, finally pushed him to respond,
and that response became maybe his most famous work of all.
After World War II, Picasso finally made a public political statement, joining the Communist Party. He even got the Lenin Peace Prize in 1962. Yeah, it was a controversial move for sure, but he stuck with it for the rest of his life.
All right, so let's get to our final section and try to make sense of all this. How do you reconcile this towering figure of 20th century art with the deeply flawed man who left a trail of wreckage behind him?
He lived a long, incredibly productive life, creating tens of thousands of works. But when he died, all those unresolved tensions about his legacy really came into sharp focus.
And this is the central conflict, isn't it? On one side, you have the absolute artistic genius who changed art forever. And on the other, you have a man who his own granddaughter said subjected women to his animal sexuality, taming them, crushing them, and then just discarding them.
I mean, the human cost here is just staggering. 2 of the most important women in his life died by suicide. Others had mental breakdowns. His behavior deeply wounded his children and grandchildren, leading to addiction and, in 2 cases, their own tragic deaths. It's a devastatingly bleak picture.
So, we're left with this question: can we, or should we, separate the monumental art from the monstrous artist? Picasso gave the world a new way of seeing, no doubt about it. But the people closest to him often paid an absolutely unbearable price. It's a legacy of both brilliance and brutality, and honestly, we're still grappling with it today.